Hello and welcome to this special edition of Altitude. We're coming to you from Geneva from the 2024 edition of Airspace World. I'm your host, Russell Porter, and we'll be talking to some of the key players from the aviation industry. We hope you'll enjoy the show. I'm joined by Tim Arell, Chief Operating Officer for the Air Traffic Organisation for the FAA. Hello Tim, welcome to Altitude.
Thank you, great to be here.
The show's huge, around 270 speakers, 120 different companies represented. What are you looking forward to?
Really the opportunity to interact with our peers from around the world, share challenges, identify opportunities, and see a lot of new technology that is coming down the pipe for all of us.
And in terms of the FAA, you're responsible for a huge amount of airspace. What particular challenges does that present?
Well, I'm very proud of our team working 30 million square miles of airspace and handling at least 50,000 IFR flights a day. As we do that, our challenge is just the size and complexity of our national airspace system. There really are three U.S. national airspace systems. Our legacy, that provides services to everything from a Piper Cub to the latest in aviation. Our next gen, or our current modern system, as we become more sustainable and more efficient, and then getting ready for the national airspace of the future and the data exchange that we're beginning with some operators that I look forward to sharing information about. But operating those three types of national airspace systems simultaneously and maintaining it is probably our biggest challenge.
So how do new airspace users fit into that? So the likes of eVTOLs and drones flying beyond the visual line of sight?
Not only drones, commercial space is a big endeavor in the United States, and it's literally taking off and doubling the number of operations. We're approaching 200 launches a year at this point. So as we go to accommodate all of these drones and advanced air mobility in its infant stage, but as it gets ready to go to scale, and again, space operations along with all the other legacy operators, our commitment is one of equitable access to that airspace. It's a national resource, it's a natural resource, but we really do want to safely integrate in an equitable manner all the operators into that airspace. So the challenge there is going to be data sharing information, understanding common rules of the road, or rules of the airspace, if you will. And as we go to do that, bringing everyone together and collaborating on solutions. Because right now there's so much happening so fast, technology is evolving so fast that it's challenging a lot of our norms, but the one continuous focus is safety.
What does it look like in terms of ground-based technologies?
I think it's a balance of both ground-based and space-based technologies. You have to have a minimum operating network because it's about resiliency. Whether you have solar flares interfering with communications from space, or natural disasters happening on the ground, whether they be hurricanes or earthquakes disrupting our terrestrial network, it's sort of a counterbalance. So ensuring a minimal operational network both in the air and in space and on the ground is really the viable path forward for those sustainable services for new entrants and old.
You mentioned a few environmental effects there. ICAO have placed a significant target on aviation to become net zero by 2050. How are the FAA facing up to that?
Well, certainly FAA embraces that aspirational challenge of getting to net carbon zero, and we want to do all that we can. From the air navigation service provider perspective, our intent is to try to optimize the climbs and profiles that minimize the amount of fuel usage and noise, and looking at things like surface metering and minimizing the amount of time that an aircraft pushes back from a gate, taxis out to the runway, and gets airborne. As the system becomes congested or is not able to use all of the efficiency tools that we have, whether it's a matter of aircraft equipage or the ANSP's ability to digest data from the users, aircraft are lined up for several minutes waiting to take off. Those jets are running longer and impacting the environment. So anything that can enable quicker sharing of data, shortcutting the amount of time that an aircraft is operating its engines and transporting valuable goods and services and supporting the commerce of the world, really, at the end of the day, is really an investment in our future. But aviation is so critical to all of that. But being a responsible user of that natural resource in our national airspace system is really something we're focused on.
So as the demand on the aviation ecosystem increases, with that challenge of becoming net zero, do you think it's possible for us to balance those two things out?
I think it is. There's a risk-reward balance, because one of the things that we're all grappling with is knowing and understanding that aviation is always going to be safe. Now it's an efficiency question. We can move a lot of people in a lot of different places where they want to be, but it comes at a cost of increased operations and of noise. And so they're focused on reduced fuel usage, they're quieter aircraft. There's even an effort to increase the size of aircraft and reduce the amount of operations. However, the public's demand and expectation will really drive that. These things come at a cost. They're not cheap, but they're worth the investment for that sustainable future. So trying to achieve that balance is really around public expectation of, they certainly want to reduce noise, but they want to be able to travel to where they want to be able to go. They want a greener environment, but they also want to be able to have the freedom to move about. So it's a delicate balance, and again, collaboration is key, bringing all the stakeholders, the community, the operators, and the service providers to the table.
The word collaboration has come up a lot for us today. It's obviously a really key component of aviation moving forward. One of the other key themes of the show is the next generation of talent moving into the industry. So how do we ensure that aviation remains attractive for young people?
It's so incredibly important for young people, and for people that maybe their family or even their community have not historically been involved in aviation. We need a diverse representation in our workforce, because it's such a diversity. There's such diversity in the amount of entrants that are coming in. Drones, commercial space, aviation. It's going to just advanced air mobility will open up aviation to communities that are nowhere near an airport, right? Or that maybe helicopter operations were cost prohibitive before. And as everyone gets involved, we need technicians, engineers, mechanics, not just pilots, remote pilots. We know that people who have good gaming skills do well in remote operations. They certainly have to learn to fly safe, but it requires all types of backgrounds, and quite frankly, traditional aviation doesn't have all the resources to support that. So we're looking to that next generation, but we're trying to widen the aperture as we do that and make sure that we're very inclusive of everyone from an incredible amount of backgrounds to really help us think of solutions that haven't been thought of before, and to be mindful of that community and that environment that aviation is both supporting and impacting.
In doing my background for this episode of Altitude, I couldn't help but see that you've been a medical technician, a police officer, a firefighter. How have all of those skills served you in your current role?
It's amazing. I got involved in public safety, really trying to give back to my community and being involved in the town that I was living in. And aviation was such a thrill to be involved with, and I came up through our Air Force in the United States. And taking all of those experiences, it was really about public service and public safety. So there's so much commonality between the fire service, the police service, and air traffic control that it really helped me and really when it comes to crisis management skills, triaging, and really just taking care of the public. So it's been a great career.
That's a fantastic answer. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today on Altitude. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. It's been fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Hello, I'm joined by three of the Future Flights experts, Rob Weaver, Richard Ellis and Richard Parker. Good morning, hello, how are you?
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome to Altitude, welcome to the show, and welcome to Geneva. Maybe we could start with some introductions. Rob, could you give us a hello?
Yeah, good to be with you, Russell. So my name is Rob Weaver. I'm the Urban Air Traffic Management Global Business Development Lead for Eve Air Mobility. So Eve Air Mobility is an Embraer-backed company dedicated to accelerating the advanced air mobility ecosystem. And we're building an eVTOL, an electric air taxi, as well as ATM systems to support the introduction and scale of advanced air mobility.
Thanks very much, Rob. I've got a bunch of questions, but I'll come back to you. Richard Parker, would you like to say hello?
Hello there, Russell. Thanks for having me along. My name is Richard Parker, and I'm the founder and chief executive of Altitude Angel. Altitude Angel is a company dedicated to advancing the world's transition towards autonomous aviation. We're really focused on making sure we can have scalable drone operations safely at scale right across the country here in the UK, but also right around the world.
Thanks very much, Richard. And Richard Ellis.
Good morning, my name's Richard Ellis. I'm the New Airspace Users Director for NATS. I joined NATS about 4 months ago with the responsibility of trying to bring together the future of integrated airspace for all users from space to ground and across the world.
Richard, I understand there might be some big news that you want to talk about.
Indeed, today's quite a big day in the next step of moving integrated new airspace users into NATS. We've previously announced at the Dubai Air Show our partnership with Eve, which will allow us to bring in the advanced air mobility capabilities into our future skies. But also today we're announcing our partnership with Altitude Angel, which will enable our UK airports in particular and allow us to look at the corridor technology and how we might be able to position and use that for the future. So really delighted to be able to bring Altitude Angel into the mix, and this is just another step on the journey to having the full integrated suite and capabilities that you see here.
Richard, sticking with you then for a moment, I understand there will be a demonstration of eVTOL flights, drones flying beyond the visual line of sight in the vicinity of a busy airport. How does all of that come together?
Well, it's a lot of hard work. We've been doing a number of projects which have been partly funded by Innovate UK with Future Flight to develop case studies and operational mechanisms where we can both check the capacity needed of future airspace as well as to look at the procedural side of how to make our traditional air traffic operations work with our new airspace users. And if you look at the screens behind us, there's a great example here where we have in the middle the digital tower from Sea Ridge with a traditional ATCO station integrated with Eve's urban air traffic management system for advanced air mobility on that side, and then on this side a beyond visual line of sight operation from Altitude Angel. So all of those are then integrated through the new concept of an airspace manager who can bring together the future digital air traffic control.
Fantastic. So Richard Parker, I understand that Altitude Angel are building the world's longest drone superhighway. What does that mean for the UK?
Brilliant, thank you for asking. So yes, we're building a 265 kilometre by about 10 kilometre wide corridor right through the heartland of the UK. And our ambition for that corridor is to make it a lot easier for folks who want to fly drones for good or for commercial purposes, everything from medical deliveries all the way through to maybe last mile deliveries, inspections, testing, public sector use, and maybe one day also eVTOL flights as well. But the goal really is to enable folks to offload a lot of that safe navigation element over to the system so that they get the same consistent result wherever they are and can really just focus on getting airborne and doing so safely.
Rob, one type of vehicle that will be operating into and out of airports straight away will be the eVTOL. Can you tell us a little bit more about Eve and the aspirations that you have?
So the Embraer Group have known for a long time that it's really important to consider ATM when thinking about launching eVTOLs and electric air taxis. Our sister company ATEC provide the full ATM system in Brazil, and obviously in Brazil you've got the world's largest air taxi market in Sao Paulo. So we've been working, for as long as we've been working on the eVTOL, on new approaches to air traffic management in the urban environment to allow their safe integration and then scaling into the future. And we're really pleased to collaborate with NATS on these kind of topics.
And how does your close relationship with the Brazilian aircraft manufacturer Embraer help Eve in achieving that ambition?
So Eve is supported both by ATEC and Embraer in really delivering on that vision. Eve is just one company working in a full ecosystem of organisations trying to deliver this really exciting future of electric air taxis, the ability to fly around a city and save time. And so we have strong partnerships with Embraer, we have a strong partnership with ATEC, and through that we're able to deliver world-class technology in terms of airframes and air traffic management and really be ready for the launch of this industry, which will come in maybe just a couple of years now.
What does the partnership that Richard talked about mean for Altitude Angel?
Well, I think for Altitude Angel, it's a really exciting partnership. It's something we've been working with NATS and behind the scenes for a very, very long time on. Certainly the initial work streams are focusing on enabling NATS airports to begin that entrance into the UTM world, so we can start serving UTM customers and workloads. But I will let NATS lead on the communications for what's next. But there's a bright future there, I'm sure.
Thanks, Richard. Rob, what are you looking forward to about the show?
So I'm really interested to see what people think about this amazing integrated demo we've got here. I mean, you have never seen an integration of a digital tower, a UTM and a UATM, an urban air mobility traffic management solution, all together on one platform. And I'm really excited to see what people think about that. Come and see the future innovation really before your eyes. It's a fantastic place to be.
Thank you, Rob. You paint a very exciting picture. And Richard, what are you looking forward to about the show?
Well, building on what both Richard and Rob have just said, I think we're bringing some world-leading capabilities here. We've been running some world-leading projects to show how this will actually operate in the future from a practical perspective, not just a theoretical one. And to be able to show that to the world and to start to get their feedback so that we can focus on speed of implementation now. So I expect to have first services up and running in this year.
Richard, Rob, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the show.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm joined by Sharon Cook, CEO of Airways International. Hello, Sharon. Sharon, you've travelled a long way from New Zealand to Geneva to be here at the show. What's the particular draw of the show for you?
I guess for us, we see this event as like the marketplace for air navigation service providers. It's where the whole industry comes together. I guess we find it very valuable to meet with our customers. I mean, everybody comes to one place. We really enjoy just engaging with other ANSPs, other suppliers. So yeah, it's a coming together of the whole community once a year.
You mentioned technology. We're surrounded by lots of tech vendors here today in the show. What have you kind of got your eye on in terms of technology deployment for Airways?
Yeah, so I guess I can answer that question in two ways, because there's the parent company, Airways, and then there's Airways International. For our parent company, we're very much focused at the moment on replacing the Auckland control tower, and that is the gateway to New Zealand, so that's going to be a significant investment for us. And of course, we're looking at the digital tower technologies in that space. I think the other thing that's top of mind for Airways is just around the new airspace users and how we engage with, integrate, segregate, kind of immerse that whole new industry into what we're doing. Yeah.
Sharon, there's a few topics there. So if we start with digital towers, what are the key benefits that you see from the digital tower perspective for replacement of Auckland Tower?
I definitely think Airways are looking at that in the contingency space for sure. In terms of, well, I guess it's just all the extra features that you get in a digital tower, right, with the improved situation awareness and all the capability that they have. There's a lot of considerations for us around what that might be, and certainly on the table at the moment is a new physical tower, a hybrid tower, or a digital tower. It's all under consideration, but there will be digitisation of the tower in some shape or form. That decision hasn't been made yet.
And new airspace users, the sort of flying technology, if you will.
Yeah.
You mentioned playing nicely. What are the kind of key integration challenges that you foresee?
Well, we've just been involved in a trial with Whisk, and it was like, how do you classify that aircraft? So we chose to classify it like it was a small aircraft, even though it didn't have a pilot in it, because it was behaving in the same ways. So we integrated it into controlled airspace. We did a trial like that. It's all to help inform the regulations, I guess, going forward. I think so. That's one part we're looking at is how these vehicles behave and how they will be treated in controlled airspace. There's probably going to be some segregation as well. There'll possibly be some corridors for uncrewed traffic. I think we're the same as everybody else. We're just trying to work out the rules of the game and that's going to look like.
I understand as well that in New Zealand there are some very specific and interesting use cases for drone technologies. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
The government has funded almost like a research sandpit, if you like, around aerospace, around uncrewed traffic and aircraft. And so we've been involved in some of those trials. We've got some funding to participate with Whisk and another company called Tāwhaki, which was exploring how uncrewed aircraft could fly around, into controlled airspace, and they were acting and behaving like a small aircraft. So we were treating it the same. It was we're actually in the safety awards for it. The ATM awards, because it was us, it was the controllers, it was Tāwhaki, it was Whisk. So there's projects like that going on. I guess that comes back to we don't have busy airspace, so we've got space.
One of the themes of the show is the next generation and attracting young people into aviation. What words would you have for somebody who is thinking about a career in aviation?
I'd just say it's a fantastic career, right? It's so exciting. I've been a plane spotter forever, and actually when I was in my last year of high school, I was going to be an air traffic controller. I didn't, by the way, but my parents wanted me to go to university. So it's interesting, isn't it? And that was probably the main reason why I didn't do it. But I would say, look, there's amazing opportunities. You can work all over the world. It's such an exciting industry. And I highly recommend it.
Inspiring words. Thank you very much, Sharon.
Okay.
Sharon, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining us on Altitude, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, thank you. Nice talking to you.
I'm joined by Eric Corona, Director of Concept of Operations and Airspace at Whisk. Hi Eric, welcome to Altitude.
Thank you for having me.
I understand you're pretty much just off the flight from San Francisco.
Just got off the flight 6:30 this morning, so let's see how this goes.
How are you finding the show so far?
It's amazing. 3 years ago, this event did not include anything on advanced air mobility. Maybe a couple of booths here and there, but today, advanced air mobility is you see airframers and you see the folks that are starting to curtail the services or think about the services that advanced air mobility will use, and it's on the agenda. And so it's night and day over the, where we were 3 years ago. And I'm not going to blame COVID. 3 years ago, that was the state of the industry. So we've advanced tremendously. So really excited to be here.
And what do you think's changed then in those 3 years?
So I think what has changed, a couple of things. One is the realization that technology is here. So Whisk is not alone in alongside other airframers. Whisk is unique in that we're pursuing remotely supervised operations, where our pilot is off board the aircraft, or our remote multi-vehicle supervisor is off board the aircraft. But as an industry, there are a series of airframers that make it very real. Some of them are going to enter operations later this year, potentially early 2025, and so now it's real.
So you talk there about something that Whisk are doing that's quite different to many of the other eVTOL manufacturers. Yes. When you talk about remotely supervised operations, what does that actually mean? Is there a pilot on board?
There isn't. And so what I'm going to describe, we made public in a document called CONOPS, or Concept of Operations. But the idea is that technology is here and has achieved a state of the art that allows us to remove the pilot from on board the aircraft, provide that operator, that multi-vehicle supervisor, the situational awareness that is as good, if not better, than if that pilot were on board. And in doing so, provide additional value to the operation. So we do it for three reasons. The technology's here, it delivers value, it allows us to reduce the cost to the end user, but most importantly, it's because we believe it's safer.
And what do the regulators think of this? Because it feels like quite a big step to take the pilot out of a flying machine.
So, if we think about it, is ICAO has an RPAS framework. So removing the pilot from on board is not a novel thing. I would argue that because the technologies are now at the forefront, so things such as detect and avoid, C2 links that are robust, we're actually now in a position where we can go back to the regulators and have the conversations about how do we integrate these aircraft into the NAS. And so the regulators know that this conversation is happening. We see it in YASA, we see it with the FAA in the United States. The FAA is just stood up what they call the Autonomy Working Group. And they do this because they know that industry is coming with these proposals, more than proposals. I mean, we're baking composites. And so we're seeing a response back from the regulatory side of the house.
And what about the public, people who might fly on these things? We just had two people walk behind us there, and I heard them use the two words air taxi.
Yes.
Are people excited?
People are excited, and because once you see it, you can very easily imagine it operating over an urban environment. Everybody's been stuck in traffic. And so the value proposition that these type of aircraft offer, at the cost that we'll be able to offer, at the noise signature that is characteristic of these types of aircraft, makes it very compelling. And besides, it's cool. I mean, it's a beautiful looking bird, and grown-ups and kids alike just, orbit towards it. It's just beautiful.
It is a great looking aircraft, and am I right in thinking this is the 6th generation that we have behind us?
Yes.
And where can we expect to see these aircraft flying? Whereabouts in the world are you targeting?
So we've announced, highly guarded, but what I can reveal is three things. We've revealed that we are going into Houston as our launch city in the United States. We have also revealed that we're entering operations in Australia. And the third thing I will mention is that this aircraft is being designed to operate elsewhere in the world, right? So we just had to pick a couple of spots to start with.
Exciting times. And Wisk is a wholly owned subsidiary of Boeing.
That's
How
correct.
does that help with the development of the aircraft?
Well, first and foremost, it gives us access to an immense treasure trove of technical fellows and experts that come with designing an aircraft. And those are the folks that are involved with aerospace, my colleagues in aerospace integration, regulation, government operations, and you name a subject, technical subject, there's a technical fellow as well if we need to. So the access to support is tremendous. Another thing that being a Boeing subsidiary gives us is, we talk about it being real, right? The Boeing company is backing this concept of operations of a remotely supervised aircraft. That is a very powerful statement.
Absolutely. One of the other key themes of the show, and I think it's the theme for the final day of the show actually, is the next generation and attracting talent into the industry. What are Wisk doing in that space?
So last year, our internship program, and this year for that matter, it's just starting. If we look at the acceptance ratio, it was harder to get into Wisk than to MIT. Don't quote me on this, but it was a very difficult to get into Wisk.
You set a high bar.
High bar. But the thing that really caught our eyes was this is before Wisk was a fully owned subsidiary. And so the namesake and how young talent was being attracted to us was the signal that told us that we're onto something, that what we're working on for engineers is exciting. And so in a world where in aviation and aerospace everything is structured, everything is regulated, what we look for is that creativity. And I think that we're having a renaissance in creativity in aerospace at large, and that's what we look for.
Fantastic answer, Eric. It certainly is an exciting time for aviation. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today on Altitude. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Well, thank you for having me again.
I'm joined by Michael van Dorst, CEO of LVNL. Michael, welcome to Altitude and to Airspace World. What have you seen in the show so far that's taken your eye?
Thank you very much, and it's great to be here. Actually, there's so many things to see around here at Airspace World. I really enjoyed being here every year. Some very important topics, of course, this year are the way we can introduce AI into the ops room, right? Not in the operational technology, but maybe via the IT move. Very interesting part. We're also talking about new entrants, which obviously are not new entrants anymore because they're already knocking on our doors for several years. How are we going to make sure that we can introduce them to our airspace? So this is interesting. And of course, next to the regular suppliers, we are talking with upgrading our main FDP systems, our tower systems. So there's plenty to discuss, plenty to investigate, and plenty to learn here.
This is an important show then for LVNL.
For LVNL, we've got, I think, around 40 or 45 people here. Also a few from the military, because we are working on civil-military integration at the moment, making the last steps. I hope we can do it in 2024. So we send a lot of people here to be inspired by other companies, see what the colleagues are doing and how we can progress. Because, as you know, we are operating Schiphol Airport, very important airport for the Netherlands, and I think we must be cutting edge because of that.
Tell me a little bit more then perhaps about Schiphol.
Schiphol is the major airport in the Netherlands, 500,000 movements in general. Of course, there's a little political dynamics going on around this. We really have to make sure that we balance the hindrance people feel from Schiphol Airport with the economical benefits. And that's why the government 2 years ago almost decided, okay, we should reduce the number of traffic movement at Schiphol Airport because we want to reduce the impact of the people of the surrounding communities. So we are very much in this debate, how is it going to work, what does it look like given the Open Skies Agreement between the EU and the US, for instance. But the main takeaway is that we really have to focus on reducing emissions, reducing noise levels to make sure that there is a bright future for aviation in the Netherlands.
So ICAO have set the target for aviation to be net zero by 2050. What specifically are LVNL doing in that space?
There are several aspects on that, right? One aspect is what's happening in the ops room and what's happening in the day-to-day operation. And at the same time, you also have to look at your internal company procedures. How do you make sure that your procurement fits this purpose? How do you make sure that, for instance, your waste strategy fits this purpose? How do we make sure that all the electric power, right, to run all those systems, how do we make sure that they are being sourced on an ecological friendly way? So those are actually two things. Then at the other side, of course, we have to make sure that we have to work on our airspace, have to work on our procedures design, that we make sure that airlines can reduce emissions whilst in our airspace. And for that latter part, we are working on a Dutch airspace redesign project together with the government, of course also together with the neighboring states, so NATS is aware of that for sure, to make sure that we can go and can attain all those beautiful goals set by ICAO, and even as an organization, be faster than that.
So you mentioned airspace modernisation. We know that it isn't just the airspace that's being modernised, it's also, as you said, new airspace users are coming along to take advantage of that airspace. What are you doing in the Netherlands specifically around drone technology, for example?
Yeah, so it's incumbent users, right? Like the military also, it's different dynamics, especially since the last 2.5 years, what happened in Ukraine. So that's an important one. For drones, we are working together with Altitude Angel, you know them well, because we are really looking for ways to introduce drones, maybe in our CTRs, outside the CTRs, and make sure that they will have a proper, safe entrance into our system. What we do see there is that we are trying to push the boundaries forward, and it's difficult for the regulators, right? So how do you regulate this kind of traffic? How do you make sure that you have equivalent levels of safety for these type of operations? So what we aim for as LVNL, we say, okay, we must be the SIS provider, the Common Information System provider. This is very important to us because if we want to have a safe integration in the present operations, day-to-day operations, we want to make sure that it's all at the same safety level as we do nowadays and that we can accommodate both needs. Because I'm pretty sure that in 10 years from now, and maybe even faster, there will be just as much drone or RPAS demand as regular ATM demand at the moment. So we're working very hard on that, and the first step is that the government gives us the SIS role. I expect at any moment now, and then we really have to step up our game to make sure that we get further into this. Like for instance, BV loss operations, very important for our drone operations, either to make money or to make sure that people are being served better. For instance, bringing blood samples from one hospital to the other one.
Thank you, Mikkel. At the Open, you mentioned AI. What role do you see artificial intelligence playing in aviation?
What I really find interesting about AI is that things can move tremendously rapidly when you use it, right? But you have to make sure that your input features are right, are correctly designed, so are correctly specified. And that's why at the moment maybe it's still a bit difficult to get them in the OT, right, into the operational domain. However, what we did last year is we designed, together with a small company in the Netherlands, we designed a decision support tool. I think NATS have been working on that for Heathrow as well. That will give us an impression on how capacity will evolve at Schiphol Airport in the next few hours. And it will give us the opportunity also to calculate potential delay minutes given the decisions on capacity we are making, our supervisors are making. So it's really a support system. And it does that on the basis of what we have learned in the past, given runway configuration, given controller availability, given weather forecast, given snow maybe or whatever, or storm. And we're going to use all that to run simulations for the next few hours. And we already see that this tool is really bringing us hundreds of minutes reduction of delay minutes on an average day.
And when do you think we will see the day where AI replaces the air traffic controller? Do you think that's a credible thing?
I think there's a lot of opportunities with AI. So far, I think it's a real good tool to help air traffic controllers do their work better. I think many things in the system, in this very complex aviation air traffic management system, still rely on a person. I think that is good. I think the air traffic controllers at the moment are doing great work. I do think they will still be involved also in the future, but I think their role will be a little bit different. And I think at the moment they are very active, vectoring, controlling an airplane, and I think step by step, also looking at trajectory-based operations, step by step, it will be more monitoring of the aircraft, of the aircraft flows, instead of really actively controlling, tactical controlling, like we do nowadays. So maybe the amount of RT load will decrease by 50% in those aspects. That would be good for the ATCO as well. graduating new ETCOs. I think that's where their role will change in the next few years.
Interesting thoughts, great insights, Mikhail. So whilst we're talking about people there and the controller, one of the big themes for this show is the next generation of aviation talent. How do we ensure that the aviation industry remains attractive to young people?
It is a very, very important question, and we are struggling with that in LVNL as well. What we do is we are trying to tell the people what we are doing, right, via LinkedIn posts, via small videos on Instagram or whatever, but we also try to get the people into the company. We are working very actively with the Aerospace Engineering Department of the Technical University Delft. There's an aviation academy of the University of Applied Sciences in Amsterdam we are working very actively with. And actually all the time in LVNL we have about 20 or 30 internships from those universities, focusing on, okay, how can we develop further on specific teams in air traffic management.
What's it like to work with NATS as one of the neighbouring ANSPs to LVNL?
Well, first of all, I think it's very important that we work together with NATS. It's a fantastic neighbor, right? In Holland we have this saying, it's better to have a good neighbor than a faraway friend. I think with NATS we feel it's both. So that is very good on different levels. Between the ETCOs, all goes fine. But you're not only a neighbor, right? You're also one of our suppliers. I think the intelligent approach tool, the RECAT TBS that we have introduced at Schiphol Airport by now I think already 1.5 years ago, works excellently. And the way we did this together with NATS, together with Leidos, together with Think Research, it has really gotten us the really big value, and I think it is the biggest step we have made for the airline customers over the last years, especially with regards to punctuality. And at the same time it has also given us the benefits of using less of our secondary runway, which has more noise hindrance for the people of the surrounding communities. So we use more the preferred runways, noise-wise. So it's not only for the customers, the airline customers, it's also for the people in the surrounding communities. I enjoy working with NATS. I think the feeling is the same all over LVNL. So fantastic neighbor, fantastic friend.
I'm joined by MP Berman and Mark Cooper from NAV Canada. Welcome to Altitude. MP, we spoke 12 months ago here at Airspace World. What's changed?
You know, it's been an interesting 12 months, certainly. We are very focused on the future, really moving forward with our strategic initiatives. And I think last year when we spoke, it was kind of the rebuilding stage. We are full force ahead now as we're moving ahead.
And Mark, it's day 2 of the show. What are you looking forward to seeing?
It's just so great to be here again with all the people around that you have to connect with the show. The setup is amazing. I mean, literally walked in straight into a panel and straight to you guys, but can't wait to get around and explore.
Fantastic stuff. Sustainability is a really big topic for aviation. ICAO has set a target for aviation to be net zero by 2050. What does that mean for NAV Canada?
So I get the pleasure of owning facilities as well as technology. We're taking an interesting stance though, because for every dollar we spend on our own facilities is a dollar we're not spending on the airlines. And we need to make sure we enable our airlines to have preferred routes, continuous descent approaches, and actually make sure that they're eliminating their carbon, because that is a much better use of a dollar than spending on ourselves. That said, we have legislation in Canada we have to meet. So we have to make sure we make the right balance, so we put the right steps in place with our supply chain and with our buildings to get us to the 2050 goal.
And are there any particular technologies that you're deploying to help in that effort?
Well, so I'll talk about TBO first, but this is a joint partnership. So NAV Canada is fantastic in the fact that we work so well together. So we've obviously joined ITEC, and that's part of our TBO strategy. And TBO is the fundamental, the benefits that we see from TBO into the operation in terms of emissions and efficiency are amazing. But ITEC and technology can't do it alone. So I need MP to change the airspace to enable us to get those maximum benefits.
Yeah, so airspace modernization is a big undertaking for us. We're really seeing it as an opportunity to blank slate. We've historically been so based on ground-based structures, lines on a map, geographical decision making, and we're really looking towards the future about getting rid of the lines on the map and looking at things a lot more holistically. To Mark's point, really factoring in the advantages that we can get from trajectory-based operations, helping the customers go from A to B in the smoothest, least tactical intervented way.
Thank you very much. We are surrounded by technology providers in the hall today. What in particular, has got your eye in terms of technology deployment for NAV Canada?
Well, we've actually been going through a phase of the last 2 years of selecting nearly all of our technology we need for our strategic direction. So we can go around today relaxed. The other big thing apart from TBO that we're doing is digital facilities. So NAV Canada has about 1,000 facilities across the country. I mean, clearly being British by birth, I wasn't used to the scale when I moved to Canada, but we have over 100 towers spread across the country that we need to modernize. And so we can either capitally invest and rebuild those towers, or we can go for a new strategy in terms of digital hubs. So we can build environmentally friendly facilities and put digital hubs together, again, which helps us with sustainability, which will be a fundamental shift for the operation.
Yeah, one of the things that'll help us with is resilience as well, in particular when we think about staffing. So right now, as Mark mentioned, we have sites completely diverse across the country in very remote locations in some of the locations, and so it's giving us an opportunity to look at recruitment differently, where people want to be, where they want to stay. Right now it's a challenge sometimes getting people that want to move away from family, move into northern sites for a period of time, and then kind of make their way across different sites over the course of their career. So thinking differently, and I think that's a lot of where we're going with the future. It's thinking differently, having an open mind, looking at things outside of the box. It's not because we've done things the same way for the last 30 years that it means that that's the way we need to be doing things in the future.
And with such a huge amount of airspace under your control, what are the kind of particular airspace challenges, MP?
There are certainly airspace challenges, in particular commonality being one of them. We see a lot of differences across the country from one FIR to the next FIR, and we have 7 different ones, and oceanic control. So commonality is one of the pieces that are really important, especially as we're moving towards the airspace modernization initiative, getting things aligned so it's not so complicated when people are moving from one place to the other, or when pilots are flying through and saying that sometimes it feels like they're flying through 7 different countries because people are doing things differently. So that's a big focus of ours, is looking at the commonality, and same to be said with towers and eventually flight service stations, where we also have different platforms, and integrated working positions is one of the technology changes that we're working through, which will also enable a lot more commonality, where same colors are being used, same kind of displays in each one of our units, and there's a big focus on pushing those forward. We've got a lot of good progress in there as well.
One thing that was really striking when I moved to Canada was the scale, but we have as many primary radars as NATS does. Now, you think about that for a country the size of Canada, it's just not feasible to deploy primary radars across the entire country. So space-based ADSB, absolute game changer for us. We couldn't be doing TBO without the space-based ADSB that Aerion provide us with.
And what does it look like in the kind of lower airspace then? What sort of technologies are you deploying there, perhaps on approach?
So on approach, actually, and we'll talk about one specific one that we are currently using in Toronto, and in collaboration with NATS and with Leidos, we were able to implement time-based separation. For us, given the wind situations and the different wake turbulence aircraft types that we have that are coming into that site, it makes a huge difference to be able to use time-based separation as opposed to the historical normal separation that we were using before. We've seen a lot of benefits, not only with the same wake types, but really with different types, and even in non-high wind situations, we're seeing that controllers are getting that habit of vectoring to the line, and it's providing a lot more consistency and a lot more predictability, even for the tower as the terminal is sending the aircraft in. And so we've actually seen benefits with training and the students, as they're coming through training and their qualification success in that site with the implementation of time-based separation. So I think it's something huge as we're moving towards the future, and especially our other majors as well, where we do deal with challenges around wind and around the different types of aircraft that are coming in and out of those locations.
One of the big key themes of the show, certainly the last day I think is dedicated to it, is the next generation of aviation and how we attract young people into aviation. What particular focus are you giving to that in NAV Canada?
Great question, and always top of mind for us. Recruitment training is a big priority for us as we're moving forward. We've been seeing upwards of 400 students in training, as of today, and we're looking towards the 800 number of students over the next 2.5 years. One of our focuses has been looking at our training program, looking at different ways of doing things, and thinking again, as I talked about earlier, outside of the box to achieve better success with qualifications as well, and looking to partner for earlier stages of training to be able to increase and maximize the capacity of training, so putting more students into seats to be able to have more students going through on-job training, and then at the end of the day, more licenses and certifications.
And from a technology perspective, it's kind of interesting that we've got a more balanced approach, because there's so much going on. We can't do it all ourselves internally. That's why intelligent approach with NATS, that's why iTech with Indra and the consortium. We have to look at the right opportunities to partner, because we can't do it ourselves. Hiring is now getting back to where it was pre-pandemic, but post-pandemic, it was really hard to hire. But this is an incredibly exciting industry. When you think about the opportunity we have to literally change a way a country flies, that's how we excite people to come and join us.
MP, Mark, thank you so much for joining us on Altitude. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.
My pleasure, thank you.
I'm joined by Mark O'Ruckett from Sea Ridge Technologies and Andy Taylor from NATS. Hello and welcome to Altitude.
Hi, thank you for having us.
So, Andy, can you tell us a little bit more about digital towers, perhaps in general?
Yeah, so digital towers from NATS basically are powered by Sea Ridge Technologies. So we have a Sea Ridge Tower, a digital tower platform, which basically is the heart of every solution we've got. But we have a range of digital towers that suit all types of operations. So we look at the operational need, the type of ConOps that each airfield has, from small to large, and we design systems on the basis of being able to do the same or more with that operation. We can put digital towers inside of a physical control tower, and we produce that as a hybrid, or we can do it as a complete remote unit, which can be deployed either on the airport or remotely off-site. But a lot of customers at the moment are going for the hybrid model and also going for the digital tower on-site, where we're looking at providing a full outside view of the airport using video, but we also then overlay that with other data sources, so radar and other things from other systems that are within the tower as well. So it becomes a totally immersive experience for the air traffic controller, apron controller and airport operations center, because this truly is a digital tower for the whole airport.
Thanks, Andy. Marco, what does this look like then from the Sea Ridge perspective? Can you tell us a little bit more about the platform?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you've got the techie guy from Sea Ridge here, so I'm quite proud of our platform, because it's one of our differentiators in the market for sure. I mean, if you look around the show today, there are digital towers at almost every stand. If you go back 10 years, 5 years ago, there was maybe 2 or 3 different vendors who have digital tower technology. And we see the market segmenting quite a little bit between remote tower centers, where it's really about smaller airfield where there's little movement and you want to control that remotely, or really where we're trying to see our USP really is in the bigger airports like Hong Kong, Singapore, Heathrow, where we can come in and we can integrate a lot of the data and we can provide enhanced value by also enabling the sharing of data between different stakeholders. So we enable, for example, airports and ANSPs to exchange data, as we're doing in Hong Kong, through a cybersecure platform, where now the surveillance data that's owned by the ATC can be shared to the airport, and we can drive use cases specifically for apron control for the airport. So that's really what we mean by the platform. It's a concept that enables convergence, and convergence really is that sharing of data, but it's not just sharing data across, but making that overall operation on the airfield better by sharing data, unlocking use cases that the airport, for example, couldn't have unlocked before without having that surveillance data.
And what are the key features that customers are really looking for then in their digital tower products?
I think that depends on the customer. Again, the really what we call high intensity runway operation customers, so they're really capacity constrained. They're really looking for capacity enhancement, so can we squeeze another 1 or 2 movements into a really constrained airport? But there are certain themes that go across all the different airports. Safety is number one always, but now cybersecurity is really becoming a big challenge as well, with more and more systems sitting on the internet. People want to explore cloud, and there are more and more cyber attacks as well. Security is really becoming a theme across all the different customers. And then if you look at the other side of the market, sort of the remote tower centers, it's really about being able to control remotely for either disaster recovery or finding some efficient way of bringing ATC into a airport that either has a couple movements or didn't have commercial traffic in the first place.
And I'm glad he put the efficiency bit in there as well, because actually for me that's a key deliverable from digital towers, and scalable too, because while we're talking about high intensity and large operations, we're also delivering a digital tower platform right now into Farnborough Airport, so a smaller airport, but one that is still a very critical operation and runs very efficiently. And we're looking at making that more efficient. And we also see other airfields where airlines are adopting Sirius's platform, like in LaGuardia with Delta Airlines. And again, that's all around efficiency around their terminal and the ramp operation. So it's not just high rows. I think it's scalable, and that's really important.
Great stuff. Marco, we spoke last year about artificial intelligence in aviation. Does that play a role in digital towers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is definitely, we're seeing more and more of the applications that we've developed for AI getting into operation for digital towers. I think there's a common need to enhance capacity. So we're trying to enhance the human at doing their job more efficiently so that we can get more capacity out of the same level of roster of ATCOs today. So it's not about replacing the human, but taking away some of the monotone decision making of when is your aircraft crossing a line. That really takes a lot of mental workload. That's where AI really comes in and says, I can take that away from you and I'll tell you when that decision is ready to be made, and you just do a final verification. So you don't have to watch that aircraft as it's approaching the hold line, about to cross the hold line, but you just focus your attention only when the AI says it's time to focus on here, and then you make that final. The final decision is always human-based, but it's that processing of the raw information that takes a lot of mental workload. We can take that away and let the human do the higher level decision.
And how do you assure the quality of the information that the AI is presenting to the controller?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So there's a lot of rigor that goes into testing the AI because it's a non-deterministic system. So it's still, there's a lot of effort in the regulatory environment right now. There are working groups of understanding how do we assure AI for operational use. So we're in that space right now of the decision support, data processing support that doesn't make the critical decision. So we get away with lots of trials and testing because the final decision still is made by the human. But if you want to take that a step further in the 10 years where we want to automate certain key tasks, the regulatory environment is not set up for that yet, but we're all working towards setting it up.
But again, there's a benefit in terms of the customer base that we have with the large airports and the high intensity operations. That means we have a huge amount of data. So when we've digitized the views, Heathrow, we ran more than 40,000 arrival flights that we could analyze in terms of the performance of the AI model. Working in LaGuardia with Delta, huge amount of traffic, it's a huge base for them. So these are the opportunities where we're not developing in a small greenfield site. We are developing at the pinnacle of current operation.
And so with that in mind then, what's next?
Oh, that's a good question. I think from my perspective, what is really next, what we're trying to get across in this show is really we need to go away from data silos, right? It's about, again, coming back to that unlocking of use cases, trying to find some efficiency by sharing data, by unlocking data sharing and driving use cases that didn't exist before. So it's all about the digital platform, which from my perspective as a software guy really means that I can write my software much more efficient so that if a airport goes out and procures a new radar system, it's no longer a 6 months process, £2 million change request. It's okay, I just need to change the little adapter piece. We don't touch any of the assured software and we just make a quick change. It's all about quick changes, adapting, and especially allowing third parties to come in as well. The entry barrier into our industry is still high. So if you're a startup company and you want to write a little noise detection, a landing gear down noise detection algorithm, well, you've got to go through the regulatory body, you've got to understand how to integrate the radar data. our aim is really to open up the platform. We've already integrated the radar data at Heathrow, for example. Let the startup company or university program come in, write a little piece, bring it into the platform, and allow, really there's a lot of smart ideas out there, but the entry barriers are just too high. So it's all about allowing other people to come in an open architecture and bringing value to the overall ecosystem.
And from my perspective, what's next? New airspace users, which we've been demonstrating on the NATS stand. So we have airports that want to diversify their business. They want to bring in eVTOL. They also want to bring in beyond visual line of sight operations, small drones. And we are working with partners like Altitude Angel, Eve, and we've shown our demonstration in terms of how the digital tower can be the center of that operation to enable those kind of aircraft to operate alongside traditional aviation on airports today.
It's becoming increasingly clear that aviation is now meeting tech, head on. And I think with that in mind, one of the themes for the show is the next generation of talent, and how do we ensure that aviation remains an attractive career proposition for young people? Marco, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I can come back to sort of the changing of the architecture. It's really difficult to get somebody young excited and say it's going to take 2 years to do something that the banking industry or Netflix can do in a couple of weeks. So it's about, we still need to be safe and we need to be secure, but we need to be able to change our system architecture in a way where we can continually grow, we can update, and it's no longer you make a system change and it's 6 months of testing and then 6 months more of testing, and it takes a year to roll things out. By that time your hardware is already end of life, software has moved on. So it's about enabling also the open source architecture. There's a lot of open source components that can help us do things in a safe and secure manner, but there's still some resistance of using other people's software code. But we need to make sure that we grow with these technologies so that we have the best possible talent working with us in aviation.
Great response. Andy, Marco, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for taking the time to join us on Altitude, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks.